What's up, loser?
Nothing much, Dan.
I see how he responded when I called him a loser, chat. He knows his place immediately. Not even like, hey, are you talking to me? Just immediately, hey, not much. So how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Danny Dan. How are you doing today?
I finally finished the rest of your Oreos.
My Oreos.
Yeah. Now all that's left is the Kit Kats and Reese's.
That was too far. They're not linked? No way. Oh my god, you're right. It is too far. But you finished my Kit Kat. Oh god, damn.
No, I haven't finished the Kit Kats.
Or I mean, you have
That-
you have left to finish it. Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, those are too dangerous. I don't think I want to touch those because that's a lot of calories in those motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I just woke up. Feels interesting. I've been here many times before. To wake up and see the sun has gone down really makes you reflect on just the morality of man and time and how I am outside the bounds of normal interactions.
Can you give your rationale on the aversion to nuclear energy? I just don't know. Okay, I get swayed back and forth all the time. I don't know what the correct answer is. My biggest problem with it is whether or not it's economically feasible. I've heard some weird arguments about how insurance is bad and it makes it so you can't afford it ever. But then somebody linked some article that said that's a big meme argument. So maybe it is. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it right now. I think it's probably still important to explore something, but yeah. So what are you doing today? Or what's up?
Your negative thought on nuclear energy is based around the fact that the insurance for it is likely too expensive?
Basically basically the idea is that a potential accident is so catastrophic that it would never become like a viable like source of energy is the argument that I've heard people give. Yeah.
So I haven't looked into it too much, but my understanding of current gen nuclear reactors, so not the stuff that was made like 40 or 50 years ago, but
which is all we fucking have. Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently the new stuff is, I mean, and again, I take this with maybe I shouldn't take it with a grain of salt, but they say that there's no chance of anything serious happening anymore. Like that, they either are using different types of fuel or just the containment system that they have. There is literally no way, whether it be flood, earthquake, etc., that there's any sort of, serious disaster that can come from it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
how the fuck am I missing a thing? Didn't they say the same thing about Fukushima?
I don't know if they did. Wasn't that a relatively old nuclear plant as well that had been upgraded?
Yeah, I don't know. One problem I have with fail safes, my logistics ever took. Oh, okay. I was wondering where the fuck my fucking arms went. I think it's kind of like everybody does this, programmers, network security people. When you have like 25 different fucking fail safes, it kind of feels like people are like, okay, I'm going to be a little bit lazy with my database system here. I'm going to be a little bit lazy with my RAID. I'm going to be a little bit lazy with this like encryption here because it's like there's like 50 million other fail safes. And then it feels like every time something breaks down, it's like this was an unforeseeable chain of events that should have never happened, blah, blah, blah. But usually what happened is just like every step of the way, somebody's like, this is probably fine. Like should be okay. And it seems like that happens a lot.
Well, as far as energy goes, I guess that there's really only one kind of nothing can go wrong with it, right? So the two that I was going to say initially was going to be solar, but the problem is solar has quite a negative tax on the environment for the things that are needed to make the solar panels. But
and it's got to, I'm really curious how much solar panels do you need to heat up the planet? If you were to replace like 50% of your energy with like solar, would having that many solar panels on the ground like significantly increase the surface temperature of the Earth? I don't know. I'm really curious.
No, I don't think so to that level. No.
You don't think so? Oh, okay.
No. I think it would be negligible. I don't even think it would be a tenth of a degree.
Do you really think so? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that would be my hunch, but I think I read an article a long time ago saying that like if you covered the entire state of Massachusetts with solar panels, that would essentially provide power for the entire planet. And if that's the case, Massachusetts is pretty small in comparison.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Sometimes people call me stupid because they never took a basic physics class in their entire life. If you have a panel and that panel is orange, and you have a panel and that panel is black, The colors that you see off of a given surface are the wavelengths of light that aren't absorbed by that surface. Something that's darker absorbs more wavelengths of light than something that's lighter. If you take a sand fucking desert that's all bright sand and you look at it from space, it's going to be bright because that signifies light hitting something and being reflected off of the planet. If you were to cover that same amount of dirt with a pitch black fucking asphalt, that area will be hotter because it's absorbing more energy, and because that's how fucking light works, you inbred fucking dipshit, okay? Don't put question marks in chat if you haven't taken fucking year 0 physics, all right? So if you have a whole area and you go from it being incredibly fucking black because it's covered in solar panels versus being something like white that reflects like a fuck ton of like energy from the planet off into space, there's a difference in the amount of energy absorbed by the planet, all right? Fuck me. Sorry. Go.
That's okay.
Yeah, so
This
I
is
think
one of the reasons why people, when they talk, I'm sorry. This is why one of the runaway things about solar, or one of the runaway effects of global warming is that if we reduce the amount of snow on the planet, you reduce the bright shit that's being reflected of the earth, and you cause an increased buildup of shit. Sorry, go. Okay, I'm done now.
No,
Go ahead.
You're right. All right. So wind turbines are like the only thing with like no negative outcome. If you
Well,
don't give a
even
shit
wind
about birds.
turbines.
Well, I mean, come on, fuck birds, right? If
Not that,
if
they
they're
also
going in
cause
that-
an increase in heating as well. I get so triggered. It's energy. It's not an infinite amount. Wind turbines literally use the air. They use up air.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
What?
Okay, I'm talking about negative like meltdowns.
Oh yeah, no,
or
it
in the
might
case
have
of
a
hydro
negligible
dams
impact. Sure,
exploding.
I understand.
There's
but like,
there's no like
I think-
insurance that's gonna really be serious.
no, I understand.
For a
I
wind
think
turbine.
even for wind turbines, I think that people have measured like a 1 to 2 degree increase in temperatures across an area where wind turbine is. That like, because every time you're getting energy out of something, you guys forget like it's thermodynamics. If you're taking energy out of a system, that energy has to come from somewhere. Now, it could be that it's like so insignificant that it doesn't matter. That might be true, but I'm pretty sure an area. Well, let's just look it up so I'm not spreading misinformation. I'm sorry. Windmill surface temperature effect.
turbines.
Oh, sorry, not windmills. The amount of solar that we would build would be nowhere near enough to actually heat the planet. The thing is you don't have to heat it that much. I'm not saying if you put solar turbines, oh my God, if you put solar panels down, it's not gonna cause like a 30 degree fucking increase in surface temperatures, but like 1 or 2 or 3 degrees, like in certain areas could be significant. That's all I'm saying. The giant wind turbines cropping up, or maybe I'm lying. Let's just read the article. Fuck it. The giant wind turbines cropping up on ridge shores and other windy locales across the world affect more than the wind. They are also changing local temperatures, notes a new study. That's likely because the enormous blades chop up the incoming wind and thereby more thoroughly mix different layers of the atmosphere. According to temperature readings from one of the oldest wind farms in the U.S. near Palm Springs, California, the turbines make it warmer at night and cooler during the day, generally speaking. For most regions, the mean temperatures may not change by much because the warming and cooling effects may cancel out, says atmospheric scientist Somnath Bhadia Roy, Jesus fuck, of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, co-author of the study published, blah, blah, blah. Wind power is on the verge of an explosive growth. It features prominently in the future energy policy of all industrial economies. Hence, we have a unique opportunity to solve a problem even before it becomes a major issue. The summertime records show that nighttime and early morning temperatures remained higher downwind from the wind farms while the rest of the day was cooler. Plugging such weather data into a regional climate model revealed that the impacts were likely due to the increased mixing of the near surface and higher atmosphere air thanks to the wind turbines. The researchers suggest this might have impacts on the agricultural fields over which wind turbines typically tower. For instance, protecting crops from frost. Orange farmers and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all I'm saying. These things do have an impact on surface temperatures, okay? Hi, Dan.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Fine. So, if you have a 1,000-watt computer
Yeah.
in a box, is that going to heat the box the exact same amount as a 1,000-watt space heater?
I think I tried to physics my way through this exact same fucking question. And I think I don't remember what answer we settled with. But I think the answer ended up being no. Because when you expend things in different ways, it doesn't all get converted to like heat, or it gets converted to heat, but not necessarily temperature. That like if you expend like kinetic energy, it doesn't necessarily show up in terms of like making things hotter. That ultimately not every single piece of energy is converted into like a temperature, I think. What's the difference between heat and temperature? Temperature is like how warm or cold something is, and I thought heat was like the way you measure like entropy in a system or something. I don't remember. I might be using the wrong word, but there was there was a couple physics PhDs in chat that used to be able to answer these questions. I don't know if they're still here, but I don't think heat versus temperature is the right term I'm looking for, but
I thought it would be the same exactly.
no, I don't think so. But
Okay,
I thought
you
it would
say
be,
it'd
yeah. So like, let's say
yeah.
that you have one box, okay, and let's say you send a certain wattage into that box, okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got another box, and you send a certain wattage into that box. Let's say in one we have a computer system that draws, or actually, I'm sorry. Let's even do something different. Let's say it's a Ferris wheel, okay. A wheel that rotates and draws 1,000 watts. And then in this area, you have like literally just a fucking heater that all that energy is converted ultimately into heat.
Yeah.
I thought that I thought the conclusion that my physics PhDers came to in chat was that these won't both be the same temperature at the end. I thought
Why?
they would be, because I think they were saying that this energy gets used kinetically and it doesn't have to be converted at the end of the day into thermal energy, whereas this is being converted directly into thermal energy. That was my understanding, and that feels unintuitive here. I think that's correct. Yeah, but it feels wrong.
Well, I suppose there could be an effort of saying that there could be some expanded kinetic energy still in there, like
No.
perhaps if you used all of
I'm assuming we're perfectly measuring the potential and the kinetic energy before and after. Obviously, if the system is storing energy, that's different. But like, yeah.
Well, sure, right. So if you pumped 1,000 watts into something and it charged a battery, you would
Then
not
it would be
have
way
1,000
different, right?
watts of.
Oh, wait, hold
Yeah.
on. Here's a thing. Gaming PC versus space heater. And this is saying the internal temperature was the same. Because my initial understanding before that was that at the end of the day, I thought everything was converted into thermal energy. I thought at the very end of the day that everything was. Through like, is it through friction? That you can either heat something or you can expend energy to move something, but through the process of friction, at the end of the day, like everything will be converted to thermal energy. That was my understanding, I thought. But even light, yes. Okay. When I brought up the solar panel thing, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm 99% sure, because I was really confident earlier. I'm pretty sure that if you wore two shirts, if one shirt was black and one shirt was white, that the black shirt will be a significantly noticeably higher temperature than the white shirt. That this is true, because the white shirt reflects more light and the black shirt doesn't reflect, not perfectly, but doesn't reflect anywhere near as much. Why did you draw that? I'm drawing shirts. You're a dumb fuck. It's it's also called white power.
So is it the same, Steve? I need to know.
For the space heater thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's got to be like a what's that website that people always link, Stack Overflow or whatever answer? There's got to be a good.
Yeah.
Okay, 1,000 watt heater versus PC
I wouldn't do watt.
temperature.
I would just do PC versus space heater.
PC versus space heater, same wattage. I want to know for. Oh, okay, here we go. Is it more efficient to heat up the room by heater or a computer? I think this is an important question. There are many heaters that consume massive amounts of energy without doing anything useful as heating a room. Your idea is to mean that electric heaters could be in part replaced by processors, which you would have to find a way to regulate the. Oh, okay, fuck this. Click the first link, Puget? I don't know how to pronounce that. Systems. Well, we saw this, but this seems to be more like an empirical measurement, not like a physics-based. The answer to this question should be deductively true given what we understand about physics. I shouldn't need like an empirical measurement. Like somebody in chat that has a sufficient knowledge of physics should be able to just answer the question 100%. LTT did a video on this. Hook me up. E equals mc squared just tells us mass energy convert. I don't know if it must, right? Why did we say it wouldn't before? I thought it would, and then I thought I had multiple highly educated physics people in my chat tell me that it wasn't true for some reason. This guy seems like yes, but doesn't elaborate. Oh, stack exchange, not stack overflow. I'm sorry. The incoming energy is the same. Then all you care about is how much of the input electrical energy can escape from the room. Everything else becomes heat. Even the fan noise becomes heat when the sound hits the wall. This is true because of friction. That when sound vibrates and it hits a wall, it will become heat. The only part that potentially can escape is microwave emissions from the CPU clock. Computers are slightly more expensive than electrical heaters. Okay, Jesus. Oh, does all the energy of an integrated circuit eventually become heat? Essentially, yes, because the law of conservation of energy, the electrical energy that goes into your computer can't just get used up. It just gets converted into other forms of energy. The vast majority of the energy is... Fuck! Okay, does anybody remember the argument that we had I had this like 2 years ago. I agree with... this is what I intuitively agreed with. Because I feel like everything in the entity is converted. But I thought that there were really smart physics people in our chat that ultimately said that this isn't the case. Things that do work like through kinetic energy or whatever... But that must not be true because all the work where's coagulation said? Because work that's done with kinetic energy is stuff like overcoming friction and whatnot that eventually would get converted to heat too. Well, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be overcoming friction, I guess, huh? Physics changed in 2 years?
Is the only thing that could actually be the escapement to this rule would be charging a battery? There's nothing else, right?
No. Because once that
when I say battery, I don't just mean like a laptop battery. I also mean like a physical type of kinetic storage battery.
Okay,
as well,
sure.
like,
so
like
the total amount of theoretical heat in that room should still be the same. It just might be being held in like a potential form. So we would call it, I think, chemical potential energy in a battery, right? Or potential chemical energy. But once that battery expends itself, once the ions are moved back and forth over the cathodes or whatever the fuck, then eventually it will ultimately be dispersed into heat. That's my understanding of it.
It's also possible that something could produce more heat than another thing as well, correct?
Wait, hold on, wait. Sorry, say that one more time.
So it's possible that one room could produce more above the efficiency as well, correct?
I don't think it's possible to be more than...
So imagine a case where you have 1,000-watt motor, okay? And you're going to pump into two rooms 1,000 watts for 10 seconds. And in one of the rooms, it's powering a space heater. And in the other one, it's lifting up an incredibly heavy rock all the way to the top, right? They both use the same amount of power for that time, full 1,000 watts going. But the one with the motor could be put into kind of like regenerative braking and create energy as it slowly lowers down the heavy weight at that point as well, correct?
No, so this is what would happen, okay? So at the moment that you stored the rock at the highest point in the room, the temperature in the room would be lower than the other room because you'd have...
Well, wait, would it?
Yes! Hold on. Let me finish my full explanation so I don't get
Go ahead.
triggered off the face of the fucking earth. In one room, you have a 1,000-watt heater that's dispersed all of its energy into heat, correct? In the other room, you use 1,000 watts to raise a rock to the top of the room.
And it's used the entirety of that 1,000
correct,
watts
yeah,
doing that.
The entirety of that, the charge or whatever, right? If you do that, that room's temperature will be cooler, but that's because you've created a battery in that room in the form of potential kinetic energy by elevating the rock high.
So wait, what's the difference between running that motor at 1,000 watts, not lifting
Colon.
anything, versus it lifting something then?
Well, it depends on how much matter you're displacing with the motor.
Why would it? It's a motor running at 1,000 watts, regardless if it's lifting something or not lifting something.
Yeah, but how far that motor's arm is going to be able to get on that 1,000 watts is going to be directly tied into how much matter is being displaced by the arm. The more matter that you've got that you're trying to move with that arm, the more energy it's going to be required to move the arm a given length. So let's say, for instance,
we're pushing in 1,000 watts regardless of what's happening. And that motor
well, let me
is running
explain.
and
I understand exactly
producing.
what you're saying. I understand exactly what you're saying, okay? If we have an arm and it starts at the ground and it goes up to 10 feet, Dan, right?
Yep.
If 1,000 watts can move a 10 kilogram rock from the bottom to halfway up, then if we were to put that same 1,000 watts in that same arm, right, it could go from the bottom farther than halfway up. It could travel more, right?
Not necessarily.
Yes,
depending
necessarily.
Depending on how it's geared.
No,
right?
wrong.
I mean,
no. Gears are going to change the power that's going to be required to move something by changing the torque, right? So if you change out a different gear, you're not creating energy. You're just using torque and leverage in order to gain more like mechanical efficiency. But mechanical efficiency doesn't mean it's a different thing, more complicated. But it doesn't matter. So I'm sorry for screaming at you, but I'm 99% sure of what I'm saying. If you were to put the rock, if you were to use 1,000 watts and you were to use an arm to raise a rock and put it at the top of the room, and then at the very end of it being at the top, it were to drop the rock, then I think the temperature in that room would be the same as using 1,000 watts to just move an arm around in the room without moving anything. Because now we've dumped all the-
well here's a better question then. Okay, two identical rooms,
Yes.
1,000 watts pushed in. On room number 1, it lifts it all the way to the top, and and then it just drops it with no resistance whatsoever going downward. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, okay, same thing happens, but on the way down, instead of just dropping it right away, it kicks into a regenerative braking, which then produces electricity as it comes downward.
What about it?
Wouldn't the second option produce more electricity, or sorry, produce more
Nope.
energy?
Because you can never get more energy out of a system. This is thermodynamics. You can never get more energy out of it than what you put into it. It's impossible.
Well, that's not true, because if that's the case, then you wouldn't have essentially air conditioning, which works off of a heat pump and the temperature change as gas is compressed versus not compressed. Right?
Yeah, but the trick.
Wait, everyone fucking doing question marks in chat.
stop,
You
stop.
guys are
Ignore
completely,
chat.
they're
Ignore
wrong.
chat.
They need to know
Well,
that they're wrong.
wait,
You need
wait.
to tell them that they're wrong. They don't understand.
Well, no, that's because it's not a closed system. Your house is being treated as a closed system, but the energy, the excess thermal energy, is being vented into another system. That's why how air conditioners work.
Well, they also produce more heating than the electricity coming in. I understand it's not a closed system, but we're talking in this case essentially saying it's impossible to go beyond the efficiency of 100%. That's not true. You can provide 1,000 watts of power to an air conditioner, and as a result,
Okay, let me explain. Okay, let's just.
I know it's not closed.
No, I know. Okay, let's talk about the rock
differential.
example. I'm just going to explain because energy is going to different places in these systems. Okay, and all the energy at the end of the day is going to be the net same. So on the regenerative braking one, you're going to have to exert some amount of energy, slowing down the fall of the rock. Correct?
On the second one, you lift. So yeah,
Okay, so you're going to exert some amount of energy slowing down the fall of the rock. And then 2, the rock, when it hits the ground, isn't going to carry with it as much force, right? Mass times acceleration. As it drops, it's going to be dropping slower. So you're going to rob some of the energy that would have transferred to the ground on impact, right? So
Correct.
whatever energy doesn't transfer to the ground and whatever is going to be the energy that's essentially absorbed by the brakes and then stored there. However, it's still there in that system. It's just now it's potential energy again because you've like found a way to capture some of the energy of the falling rock. But it hasn't disappeared and you haven't created energy, that you're just storing it in a little battery now. But it's still there at the end of the day. It'll be net zero between both rooms, both systems.
So you're saying the simple act of hitting the floor creates the same amount of essentially heat that it would if you were to drive a turbine going down. Because that's what we're saying. Like imagine an anvil up 10 feet. You dropping that on the ground has the potential to create the same amount of heat than it would if slowly lowering that anvil, powering a generator, which was then powering, a space heater or something along those lines.
If you're dropping something quickly, okay, then that thing is
again. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So if we move to the top of a room, okay, we have what we can call potential kinetic energy, right? And through falling, we're creating kinetic energy, right? We fall, and then the difference when we stop, right? Now we've expended all of our energy and increased the temperature of the room, right? If we find a way to decelerate a falling object then we must be doing it by storing that kinetic energy somewhere else. Because if you would have expended 10 units of kinetic energy dropping from top to bottom without being interrupted, if you find a way to slow it, then you're storing that kinetic energy in another part of the system somewhere.
Okay. I mean, I didn't. Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to me that dropping an anvil from 10
Shut the
feet
fuck up, Moomin,
just
right?
onto
It's a
the ground
stupid
and
fucking
nothing else
meme.
happening, that would create the same amount of heating versus slowly lowering it as it turned like a generator powering a space heater. But I mean, if it's
Well,
if
it
it's
wouldn't
the
create the same amount of heating because if you're slowly lowering it, you're implying that you're storing that extra kinetic energy in some form somewhere else, whether through chemical.
Well, no,
or
we're not storing it. We're essentially using it to turn a generator, right? Again, very similar to regenerative braking on like a Tesla when it's slowing down, right? Instead of just the resistance is driving the generator.
Okay, regenerative
as it goes
braking
down.
is a mindfucky example because you're like car braking systems aren't closed systems. In a normal car braking system, when your discs make contact with the rotors, that excess thermal energy is just vented into the atmosphere. It's a very open system, right? Whereas in a regenerative braking system, I imagine you're trying to recapture that thermal energy somehow to spin a turbine somewhere to store energy in a battery. But these are both open systems, so it's a weird way to think about it. But like, let's say that we had a room and we spun one wheel at 100 miles an hour and we spun another wheel at 100 miles an hour in a different room. If in the first room we used like a disc brake to just hit the rotor and burn through that rotor and then heat the room, let's say that in a second room we used regenerative braking to capture some of that output, then some of that heat would just be stored in a potential form in another unit somewhere. So the temperature of the room would be lower, but you'd have like some potential energy stored like in a battery somewhere else.
I mean, and yeah, I think in that would make sense if you're using friction to stop it. It was unclear to me that the simple act of hitting the ground would create the same amount of energy doing it. But if you say it does, that I guess it makes sense.
Hey Dan, you want to do pull-ins?
Do
I'm
what?
getting a lot of people asking me if they can call in and argue. It's been a while. You love yelling at them.
Destiny,
you know
here's
you
a fun
do.
one.
Oh, wait,
If a
no,
ship
we
sinks
can't
in
because I have a
fixed
poker
body of
sponsor in
water,
literally
does the
15 minutes.
water level
Sorry.
rise
Oh,
or fall
okay.
relative to when the ship was floating?
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. 1 second. If a ship sinks in a fixed body of water, does the water level rise or fall relative to when the ship was floating? If a ship sinks in a body of water, does the water level rise or fall? Well, I think the question, it's a trick. It depends on how much empty space was in the boat that was submerged before going under. It could be either, right? People are saying it rises, but that stays the same. I think it would depend. Am I talking myself into... Let's say that we had one room. You are right. I'm 99% sure I'm right, but I might be missing something unintuitive.
Because I'm putting 100%.
Let's say that we have a boat that looks like this. And let's say that our water level is like this. If this boat sinks, right, and we only have this little part that would be otherwise like filled with water, if this boat sinks, it should cause the water level to rise because you're putting a lot more underneath. You're displacing more water than you were before, right? But hold on, wait, maybe not. But let's say that you had a boat that looked like this. And then let's say that our water level was like this. And then you put this boat underneath the water. If the water comes in and fills all this up, then wouldn't the water level drop?
Is your Glink convo going to be streamed on YouTube? Because I heard that Glink is banned from Twitch.
I would have streamed it on Twitch, but now that you brought it up, I have to do YouTube because other people are going to report me. Good job, dumb fuck. Start with the boat not on the water. No, I
Wouldn't
think
it depend- it depend on the
right.
density of the boat, right?
No, I don't
'Cause if
think
the-
density has anything to do with it.
Well, you're wrong because if the boat was filled with mercury, it's mostly going to be empty at the bottom, but have an immense amount of weight, displacing a lot of water.
We're just talking
versus
about volume of air that's being displaced. The density doesn't have anything to do with it, I don't think. These guys, be nice in chat, chill. Holy shit. Or it might have something to do with density, like in a real world exchange, but or like in a real world example. But I don't think
Wait, hold on. Let's think about why what I'm saying not be correct. So imagine a boat, okay, that was filled with a very very heavy bottle of some super material, right? So the boat is displacing a lot of water, correct? Stephen,
Mm-hmm.
can you stop reading and pay attention to me?
No, sorry. Explain it to chat.
No, because you're going to try and take my ideas right as yours. 'Cause I'm
Okay,
pretty
never
sure I'm
mind.
right.
I was right, 100%. The water
No!
would, yeah, the water would
No,
water
that's
would
not
go
true.
down.
No, it depends on what's in it, I think.
But the only difference is what I said before, but she seems unlikely. The only difference could be like if there's a fuck ton of material on top of the boat that like if the total, okay, here it comes, ready? If the total volume of the top of the boat exceeds the open air volume that's submerged underwater, then the water level would rise if the boat were to sink. But if the total volume of open area beneath the surface of the water in the boat exceeds the total volume that would be occupied by the mass on top of the boat, then then the boat would not float. Oh, I don't know what determines whether or not a boat floats or not. I have no idea what properties determine that, but okay. There, okay. All right, sorry, what were you saying, Dan? Go for it.
I think it's the density of the boat, to be honest.
Okay.
So imagine a boat that's just barely floating, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But almost completely hollow, with the exception of a small bottle in the bottom of the boat that's filled with a immense, super heavy material that's holding the entire boat down. Are you with me so far?
I'm honest to God, I'm gonna ask a question that might be super stupid. Does density have anything to do with?
If you listen to what I'm saying, you can follow along.
Well,
So
I don't know
reading-
if density has
Stop
anything...
reading and pay
No,
attention.
I'm just
for a
asking.
second.
I don't know if density has anything to do with whether or not boats float or not.
Okay, well, hold on. Again, we have an empty boat. Imagine a fucking tanker. Okay, completely empty. All right, it's probably floating really high because there's no weight in that boat whatsoever. Right? There's nothing. It floats when it's filled with shit, but now there's nothing in it, so it's probably floating higher. Right? Or do you think boats float at the same level depending on if there's something in it or not in it?
Well, no, I imagine that the more you put in it, the more it'll sink.
Okay, good. Okay, so this boat is empty space-wise. There's nothing in it whatsoever. However, you're now adding a small bottle in the very center of the boat filled with an incredibly super heavy thing that's almost putting the boat to the complete capsize level, meaning that boat is down at the water level, if you will. You step on this boat, it's going to sink at that point. Okay, now is this boat displacing a lot of water at this point? The answer is yes, right? Relative to everything else, because it's pushed the entire hull down into the water, right? It's displacing as much water as actually is possible for this boat at this point. But if it goes one step further and it sinks, now all of the interior space of that boat, which is completely hollow, is now filled up with water, and it's going to be displacing less as a result of that.
Okay. Interesting. Say you have an iron anchor in the boat and you throw it in the lake, what happens to the water level? If you have an iron anchor in the boat and you throw it in the lake, what happens to the water level? What would depend on the... I don't know how density ties into floating, I guess. I have to think about it. Density. It wouldn't be the density of any... It would have to be the average density of the entire vessel, including the air inside of it, right? Then it would make sense. Okay, that's what I'm getting. Because whether or not you had something incredibly dense in the middle of a boat or something not dense at all, it would still sink or float the same if the weight was the same. But it would be the average density.
But if you had something less dense, taking out the entire space of the boat, right? Yeah. When it sinks, it's not going to displace as much as it would, right? Otherwise, because there's not as much water that's able to occupy the boat.
I think that's true. Right? Fuck, I don't know. I gotta get ready for my poker thing.
Not everybody is born with a fucking silver spoon that can start 50 million fucking businesses. You don't think a lot of these small businesses are literally these people's livelihoods? What do you